Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So even though free agency technically doesn't start until noon today, noon on July 1st, we have deals flying off the shelves when looking at it. These teams clearly talk to these guys weeks leading up to it. You're going to see even at 12, there's going to be far more deals that just come out of nowhere. So I thought I got to make a whole video on what has happened this morning because there is a metric shit ton. We're going to dive into it right now. Up first, the two biggest free agents are off the market, which kind of sucks for all of us. Sam Reinhart signed an 8-year deal at $8.625 million, and Jake Guentzel signed a deal with Tampa Bay Lightning at 7 years, $9 million. I love both of these deals. You look at these guys, yes, they are already like 29 years old. These guys are both elite first liners. So to get them below like $9.5 million is just great work by them. Sam Reinhart, he's not going to be scoring 57 goals a year every single year, but I think he can be a point per game guy with Selke level defense for the next 3 to 4 years. And even once he starts teetering off $8.6 million in 4 to 5 years, that's going to be second liner money. It's a great deal for the Florida Panthers. Now I think we can all agree that Brandon Montour is most likely on his way out. But considering the fact that the Florida Panthers had the ability to offer him the 8th year, had the no state income tax in Florida, I think we all agreed that this deal was inevitably going to get done at some point. To get this well below Matthew Tkachuk's number at $9.5 million is fantastic. $900,000 less. I fully thought it was going to be like $9.25 million coming off such a career year. It's just fantastic work by Bill Zito. Jake Guentzel, 7 years, $9 million for a guy that can give you 40 goals, 40 assists, 45 assists. I think this year he was above a point per game. Is also just amazing by the Tampa Bay Lightning to give up only a third-round pick in order to get his rights. Steven Stamkos, probably not going to re-sign, but Guentzel is a massive upgrade over Steven Stamkos right now. And then obviously Guentzel is 4 or 5 years younger than Steven Stamkos. So it's aggressive. You can say that they're absolute assholes for doing this, but in terms of the Tampa Bay Lightning on paper heading to next year, they got to acquire some type of defenseman after getting rid of Mikhail Sergachev. But right now, I think we can all agree that the Tampa Bay Lightning are probably in a far better spot now and for the next 2 to 3 years, considering they got younger. Now, next up, there's some deals that are leaking, obviously. Chris Tanev, a 6-year deal at $4.5 million. When looking at it, the first 3 years of this deal, probably going to be very good. Chris Tanev really hasn't shown any signs of aging. He's 34 years old, but I can't imagine that he's going to be this lockdown defenseman from the ages of 37 to 40. So it's going to be a brutal deal on the back end. There's no denying that, but at only $4.5 million to get one of the best defensemen in the entire NHL, something that Toronto badly needed a right shot defenseman too. It's a very good deal in the short term. It's very Brad Treliving to just not give a shit about the future. He's thinking, if I don't have a couple deals pan out, I'm not going to be here even for years 4 through 6 of that deal. So what do I care? And if they go on a deep playoff run, it's well worth it. Chris Tanev is a really good fit in Toronto in terms of being a physical defensive defenseman that's also a very good leader. They definitely got to go out and acquire some type of puck-moving defenseman. They can't just be big defensive guys. We saw them not being able to generate offense overall. I know a lot of that falls on the forward core, but also on your blue line, not having a ton of puck movers. They got to, apparently OEL might be coming, so I like that move. That's more to address some of the offensive defenseman concerns that they had outside of Morgan Riley. But yeah, I would give this deal like a C. I don't know. Because you just know he's 34 years old. He's turned 35 in October. It's not even like he turned 34 like a month or so ago. So this deal, it's going to age horribly. But as long as the Toronto Maple Leafs even make like an Eastern Conference Finals in the first 3 years, I'm not sure that Leafs fans are going to absolutely hate it. And he's a proven guy that has aged pretty well. Next up, Tyler Bertuzzi went to Chicago at a $5.5 million AAV. I expected him to go to some type of competitive team. Clearly, he wanted to cash out after last year kind of being forced to take a 1-year deal. I think also at $5.5 million or $5 million. He clearly wanted to cash out. He gets to play with Connor Bedard. Maybe towards the end of that deal, they'll actually be competitive, but clearly he prioritized maybe more so career earnings. Everybody has their personal preference. I'm not going to judge, but going to Chicago, I like to move for Chicago. It's not some 5, 6, 7-year deal where Bertuzzi is going to age horrible throughout it. Bertuzzi's like 27 or 28 years old, so a 4-year deal, you're going to get him at a pretty high level. A guy that can not only provide some skill for Connor Bedard, but also some physicality if they potentially play on the same line. So I like this overall for Chicago. You have the money to spend. Why not spend it? Why not go out and acquire a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi that had a little bit of a rough start? His underlying numbers this year were very good, but towards the end of the season really came on and should be a solid 45 to 50 point guy in Chicago. Also, it happened yesterday, but Max Domi re-signed in Toronto. I really like that deal. Under $4 million for him. Pretty solid. But New Jersey decided to lock up Brett Pesce, this one was leaked like a week ago. When looking at it, 6 years, $5.5 million. I got to see how the rest of the defenseman market works out. This happened before the Chris Tanev deal. I think that it looks a little bit better post Chris Tanev deal. Chris Tanev getting 6 years at $4.5 million. If Brett Pesce can bounce back to say what he was 2 to 3 years ago for the Carolina Hurricanes, this was a down year, especially offensively. I think it's a pretty solid deal. Do I love it for the New Jersey Devils? Considering in due time, they're going to have to pay Luke Hughes. They're going to have to pay Simone Nemitz. They're going to have to give Seamus Casey an actual opportunity at the NHL. Not sure how they're going to fully work it out, but they were able to get John Marino out of there for 2 second-round picks, open up some cap. They're only paying Pesce $1.1 million more than John Marino. So yeah, for a second-pairing defenseman, it's pretty solid. I wouldn't say I absolutely love it. The thing is, he's probably going to be, the third-pairing defenseman in due time, considering Nemitz is right-handed, as well as Dougie Hamilton is obviously their top-pair guy right now. So it's interesting. But overall, I think it's a fine deal for the New Jersey Devils. I'd give it like a B-, maybe even a B. They looked like that they were also getting Jonathan Marchessault, but apparently not now that the Nashville Predators are apparently swooping in last second to potentially snag Jonathan Marchessault. I really like the fit for Jonathan Marchessault for the New Jersey Devils. If it's a 3 to 4 year deal, if it's like Brett Pesce and they give him 6 years at 33 years old, then I wouldn't be too high on it. But when looking at Jonathan Marchessault, they got a very young forward core. Bringing in a veteran like him that hopefully doesn't fall off a cliff like an Andre Palat, I think really would be a good acquisition. I understand Nashville being uber aggressive for a guy like Jonathan Marchessault, for a guy like Steven Stamkos, considering they are an older core. They can just say, like, we'll give you a 4 to 5 year deal. We're just running it until the tires fall off with Ryan O'Reilly, Roman Josi. I mentioned this yesterday. We're just going to go balls to the wall the next 2 to 3 years. Why not? And then we'll rebuild after that. So I understand why Nashville is so aggressive. Marchessault, I feel like, is one of the most underrated targets in this entire free agency cycle. So it's definitely going to be interesting. If they come away with the Stamkos and Marchessault haul, they're going to be a legit threat. I wouldn't say a contender, but they're going to be a legit threat in the Western Conference with the offensive firepower. Again, they've really set themselves up. They're going to have to be rebuilding in 3 to 4 years if they make that aggressive of moves. But in the short term, they'd actually have a chance to potentially go on a deep run. Speaking of Steven Stamkos, this comes to us from Mike Commodore that he's heading to Smashville. This wasn't confirmed by any other insiders. Mike Commodore has like some sources, I guess. I don't know why he just tweet this completely out of the blue. I predicted him to Nashville. I think it just makes a lot of sense considering the fact that they do need a lot of offense outside of that top line that was so fantastic for them this year. So we got to see overall what happens regarding Steven Stamkos. I think we're going to get something pretty quick at 12. I'm not sure he's going to weigh his options, considering he's probably been talking teams for the past 24 to 48 hours. Toffoli could be heading to the San Jose Sharks. This comes from Dan Powers. Interesting. I mean, Toffoli's a Stanley Cup champion. It's not like a Tyler Bertuzzi where he's already won. He's already had a lot of success throughout his career. I can respect him at 34, or what is he, 32, 33 years old, just saying, I'm going to go to the Sharks. I guess that it's like a 3 to 4 year deal at 5.5, maybe even $6 million, something like that, just to give the San Jose Sharks some actual players to play with. Macklin, Celebrini, and Will Smith. You can't just completely throw them out there to the fire with no other talent around him. So I think that would be pretty solid, and I can respect Toffoli just absolutely cashing in. The New York Rangers, at first, this comes to us from Johnny Lazarus. Well, he tweeted out a little leading on thing with Turbo from the movie Turbo, if you've ever seen it. Actually, a pretty underrated movie about Teuvo Teravainen, but then he actually eventually backtracked on it. A lot of people were saying that Teuvo Teravainen was looking very likely to be a New York Ranger. Now it doesn't seem like that, considering the fact that Marchessault, I thought they may target him. Patrick Kane's off the market. Stamkos, not a ton of smoke to New York. So it looks like for the New York Rangers that Teravainen might be their number one target right now, but there's a bunch of top line winger or top 6 wingers right now. So we got to see what happens. And then lastly, a non-free agent, Shane Pinto. Pierre LeBrun said that talks have stalled between the Ottawa Senators and Shane Pinto, and he could ask for a trade. And then Ethan, the People's Insider, said, I can confirm that the Islanders have engaged with talks regarding Shane Pinto. When looking at Shane Pinto, he is from Long Island, so there's a connection there. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens because I don't know if anybody's going to offer sheet him. I think it would be more so of a traditional trade. If Shane Pinto doesn't want to be in Ottawa, Ottawa doesn't have a ton of leverage. They're going to get a solid package back for him, but I'm not sure that they can completely convince him that yeah, this is where you want to be long term. We can make some kind of deal happen. So that's definitely something to track as well. But this is definitely more free agency. I don't think a Shane Pinto deal is going to come literally out of nowhere in the next 8 hours. And then lastly, late deal that just emerged out of nowhere as soon as I stopped recording. Brandon Montour is probably heading to the Seattle Kraken on a 7-year deal, around $50 million. As I said at the start of the video, didn't expect Brandon Montour to be back at this point, considering the fact that he could get $7 million on the open market, and it's seeming like the Seattle Kraken are going to be willing to do that. I like this. When looking at this, Vince Dunn maybe isn't a legit number one defenseman. He's like a low-end number one. So to get a guy like Brandon Montour to also be able to carry some of the offensive load from the blue line, I like this a decent amount. Brandon Montour is a proven guy. He can get you 50, 60. Well, I don't think he's going to get 73 points again on the Seattle Kraken, but he is a very good player. They're making a splash. They have some money to spend. I like that a lot. They need to get some difference makers. I've said it multiple times. Not that Brandon Montour is this franchise defenseman difference maker, absolute stud, but he definitely will elevate their team to a degree. So very interesting way to spend your money, Ron Francis. I like it a lot. But yeah, it's crazy what's going on right now. I love how all these teams already have so many goddamn deals in place. And I'm going to update you guys. I'm going to be making videos throughout the entire day, graphics, all that stuff. Go follow me on my Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I'm going to put the link tree down below. I usually never do that, but I'm going to put the link tree down below. I got to start doing that. And yeah, happy free agency frenzy. It's going to be absolutely crazy. This is my favorite time of year. I'll be seeing the next one, which could be in like 30 minutes for all we know.